Jada always knew how to get what she wanted. When she was married to Liam, she quickly learned to use him for everything she could. They were not truly in love, but their marriage had always seemed like a good match in the eyes of the family. Liam was rich, well-educated, and had a promising future with the Shen family business. Jada, on the other hand, had a different plan. Jada's goal wasn't just to marry into the family business, it was to take control of it. She had been ambitious from the start. Her beauty, her charm, and her ability to manipulate people worked in her favor, but she knew that she needed more than just Liam's family name to get ahead. She wanted her own power, her own place in the world. So, she started meeting other men, under the excuse of going to beauty salons, but her real plan was to secure her future. The men she met weren't random. She didn't go to nightclubs where things could get messy. Instead, she targeted clean-cut college boys. Smart, good-looking guys who could give her the children she needed to inherit the family business if Liam's children weren't up to the task. She knew her time was limited, so she scheduled everything precisely, quick, efficient, and without mistakes. After a month and a half of her careful planning, Jada finally got pregnant. And, as if her luck was on her side, she didn't just have one baby, but twins, a boy and a girl. This news quickly spread through the Shen family, bringing joy to everyone. But despite the celebrations, Jada and Liam were not invited to the Shen group's annual gala. The invitations had already been sent to Shen and me. Shen had recently joined the Shen group as the general manager, and in just a short time, his hard work had earned the respect of everyone in the company. Meanwhile, Mr. Shen and Mrs. Shen had made a private agreement: Shen would inherit the company. However, Liam would still be well taken care of, receiving a large portion of shares and assets. But Liam had no idea about this deal. When Liam received the gala invitation, he was thrilled, believing it had come from his father. He rushed to the event with Jada by his side. But when they arrived, it wasn't what they expected. Mr. Shen stood on stage, proudly introducing Shen to the crowd. "This is my son Shen," he announced. "He holds a PhD from MIT and was once called a genius in the stock market. He's only been with us for a short time, but he's already led our company to new heights. I have full confidence in his future leadership, and I hope everyone will support him moving forward." Before Mr. Shen could even finish his speech, Liam erupted. "Dad, you promised me I'd inherit the company. What is this? Giving it to that bastard?" He was furious. "I don't agree with this. This is my company." The room went silent as all eyes turned to Liam, who was losing control. People murmured in shock. "He looks crazy," someone whispered. "He looks like a ghost." The once refined gala turned into chaos. Mrs. Shen quickly stepped in, trying to calm Liam. "Liam, this isn't the right time or place. Go home, and I'll explain everything to you afterward," she said. But Liam wasn't listening. "I'm not going anywhere," he shouted. "Get Shen out of here. He has no right to be here." His face was red with anger. At that moment, I raised my hand and slapped him hard across the face. "You don't get to talk about my fiancé that way," I said coldly. Liam froze in shock, and Shen, calm as ever, took out a handkerchief and gently wiped my fingers. "Yes," he said, his voice smooth. "We got engaged a few days ago. It was a small ceremony with our families." Liam's face turned pale. His fists clenched, and his body trembled. He wanted to lash out but knew he couldn't, not with Shen by my side. He ground his teeth and forced himself to speak. "Well, then, I wish you both a long and happy life, but get out of my company. This is still mine. My wife is carrying the Shen family's rightful heir. Even if I don't inherit the company, my son will." Shen let out a soft laugh, one that carried a trace of mockery. "Are you sure that baby's actually yours?" he asked, his tone light. Liam's face twisted with rage. His fists tightened, and his jaw clenched so hard that his teeth ground together. "If it's not mine, whose is it?" "Yours?" "Say that again, and I swear I'll kill you," he yelled. I smiled sweetly and linked my arm through Shane's. "Well, you never know," I said softly. At that moment, everyone's phones began to light up with notifications. The room went quiet as one by one, people pulled out their phones and started watching videos. The footage showed Jada meeting secretly with college boys. I had carefully prepared these videos in advance, knowing they would bring Liam to his breaking point. To make sure Liam saw it, I handed him a tablet. His face turned red as he saw the videos. His eyes bulged with rage. He snapped. Without warning, he turned on Jada, grabbing her by the neck. "You filthy woman! How dare you cheat on me?" he screamed, his hands tightening around her throat. "I'll kill you for this." Jada struggled to breathe, gasping for air as she fought against Liam's grip. "Help! Somebody help me," she cried. People in the room were still too shocked by the videos to react. The security guards, whom I had conveniently arranged to be out at dinner, were nowhere to be seen. A few guests stepped forward, but I raised my hand to stop them. "Liam has a mental illness," I said calmly. "He gets violent when he's triggered. Don't try to help him. It's dangerous. I've already called the police, and they'll be here soon." Just as I finished speaking, the police arrived. What they saw was beyond anyone's imagination. Jada was lying on the floor, covered in blood. Her body was riddled with over a dozen stab wounds. Liam was drenched in blood, still holding a knife in his hand. He had tried to cut open her abdomen, intending to rip the baby out himself. But he failed. Instead, Jada kicked him hard in the groin, sending him falling back. He quickly grabbed a steak knife from a nearby table and drove it straight into her heart. The scene was horrifying. People who had witnessed it couldn't stop themselves from vomiting. Technically, Jada could have survived the attack, but fate had other plans. She died in the most tragic way, and Liam, unable to control his madness, was arrested. Liam was diagnosed with a severe mental illness, declared legally insane, and sent to a psychiatric facility. As it happened, I had been considering investing in the healthcare industry, including psychiatric hospitals. I arranged for Liam to receive special care, ensuring that he would experience hell for the rest of his life. Jada's funeral was extravagant, thanks to a generous compensation package from the Shen family. But I had no intention of honoring her memory. I personally dumped her ashes into the sewer. I believed that garbage like her belonged in the dark, filthy places she came from. My parents, traumatized by the bloody events, fell ill. As their beautiful daughter, I sent them both to a luxury retirement home where they would spend their days in silence, far away from the world. The same day, I officially took control of the company. Shane handed me a document that made me the largest shareholder of Shen Group, with 30% of the company's original shares. I was in charge now. I blinked in surprise. "Where did you get so many shares?" "My parents never released that much equity," I asked. Shane smiled gently and placed a piece of steak on my plate. "Half came from your mom," he said. "It was part of your dowry if I ever married you. The rest I bought myself. Every time the company released shares, I bought a little more. Over the years, I ended up with quite a bit." His words brought back memories. As a child, I used to drag him into playing pretend. He was always the king, and I was the queen. I had even told him once that I would marry him when we grew up. I thought it was just a child's joke, but I didn't know he had taken it so seriously. Shane's hand gently ran through my hair as he smiled at me. "Don't overthink it," he said softly. "The past is behind us. Let's look forward to the future." I smiled back, my heart filled with anticipation for what was to come. "To our long and prosperous future," I said, raising my glass. "To our long and prosperous future," Shane echoed, his eyes shining. The days after Liam's breakdown were a blur. The shock from the events of that night still hung over everyone, but there was a strange sense of calm that followed. People were whispering about it everywhere, yet there was no going back now. Jada was gone, and Liam was locked away. The Shen family's business was in my hands, and the world was mine to conquer. Shane and I moved quickly to secure our power. He wasn't just my fiancé now, he was my partner in every sense of the word. With his intelligence and business acumen, he helped me navigate the complicated world of corporate dealings. We quickly started making moves to strengthen the company. But it wasn't just about business anymore. I was focused on something much bigger. I was focused on revenge. Liam may have been locked away, but he wasn't gone. He was still out there, and I couldn't rest until I saw him suffer like I had. He had betrayed me in my past life, and now, I would make sure he paid for it in this life. I sat in my office, surrounded by paperwork and documents, feeling a cold fire burning inside me. There was something satisfying about knowing I had control. The company, the family, and even the lives of those who had once looked down on me, everything was falling into place. Shane walked into the office, his expression serious. He placed a folder on my desk and sat across from me. "You're thinking about him again, aren't you?" he asked softly. I didn't answer at first, just stared at the folder in front of me. The papers inside it weren't just about business. They were about the people who had wronged me, the ones I needed to manipulate to make Liam's downfall complete. "I can't stop thinking about it," I said finally, my voice steady but cold. "He needs to suffer. And Jada. I want her memory erased. She got away with too much. But they'll both pay." Shane didn't say anything for a moment, letting me speak. He understood me in a way no one else did. He knew the pain I carried, and he knew what it meant for me to finally be in control. "You've been patient," he said, his voice low. "But it's time to make your move. We can't keep waiting. I'll help you. I'll make sure the right people are in place, and we'll bring down everyone who was involved. You'll have everything you want." His words were like a promise. I could feel the weight of them, the certainty. Shane wasn't just a partner in business, he was a partner in vengeance. Together, we could destroy anyone who stood in our way. I looked up at him, a dark smile playing at the corners of my lips. "Good. We start now. I want to make sure no one gets away with what they've done." The next few weeks were a whirlwind of planning and executing. I had to be careful, though. I couldn't afford to make any mistakes. If people found out what I was really up to, everything would fall apart. First, I dealt with the company. I made sure that my position was solid. I couldn't allow anyone to question my leadership, especially now that the family was looking to me. I made changes, big ones. I increased my shares, gained more influence, and eliminated those who might pose a threat to my control. It was all about securing power. But then, it was time for the fun part, the people who had wronged me. I started with those closest to Liam, the ones who had supported him. I knew exactly who to target. I could manipulate anyone with enough time and resources. The key was knowing what they wanted, what they feared. I called in favors from old friends, arranged secret meetings, and made sure that the right rumors spread at the right time. It wasn't long before the people around Liam began to question his sanity. The once powerful businessman was now a shell of the man he used to be, with no one willing to back him up. One day, I received a call from one of my contacts. "Liam is trying to escape," the voice on the other end said, sounding urgent. "He's planning something. I don't know what it is, but you need to stop him." I knew this day would come. Liam wasn't the type to give up easily. But he was already too far gone. "I'll take care of it," I said, hanging up. I stood up from my desk and walked to the window. The city sprawled out before me, a world that was mine for the taking. But even now, with everything in my grasp, I couldn't shake the feeling that Liam still had the power to ruin everything. That night, Shane and I went to see him. He was at the psychiatric facility, still locked away but growing more desperate with every passing day. The guards barely stopped us as we entered the building. They all knew who I was. We found Liam in a small room, staring out the window, lost in his thoughts. He looked up when we entered, his eyes wild with rage. "You. "What are you doing here?" he spat. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I walked over to him slowly, enjoying the fear that flickered in his eyes. "You think you can escape?" I asked, my voice soft but cruel. "You think you can run from what you've done?" Liam's hands clenched into fists. "I didn't do anything to you," he said, his voice shaking. "You're crazy. You're all crazy. I didn't betray you. You just want to destroy me." I smiled, a cold smile that sent shivers down his spine. "You're right about one thing. I do want to destroy you. But not just for what you did to me. For everything you took from me. For the lies. For the betrayal." His face twisted in horror. "No. No, you don't. You can't," but I cut him off. "I already have. And I'm just getting started." With that, I turned and walked out, leaving him trembling in the room. He wasn't going to escape. Not now, not ever. Back in the safety of my office, I felt a sense of satisfaction. I had finally done it. I had taken control of my life. I had taken everything from him, and now, nothing could stop me. Shane was waiting for me when I returned, a proud smile on his face. "You did it," he said. "We're on top now." I looked at him, a mix of satisfaction and anticipation in my eyes. "We're just getting started." That night, I sat in bed, my mind racing. Everything had fallen into place. The company was mine. The people who had wronged me were crumbling. And yet, there was still more to be done. Liam may have been locked away, but I wasn't done with him yet. He would suffer. I would make sure of it. Tomorrow, I would take the next step. And after that, there would be no one left to stand in my way. Days turned into weeks, and my grip on everything tightened. The more I pulled the strings, the more power I gained. The world, once distant and cold, was now my playground. With Shane by my side, I felt invincible. The Shen family had no idea what had truly happened behind closed doors. I had twisted everything into my favor. Liam was still locked away in the psychiatric facility, his mind slowly cracking. Every time I thought about him, a cold satisfaction spread through me. The thought of him being a broken shell, unable to do anything to stop me, was the sweetest kind of revenge. But even as I enjoyed the fruits of my success, I knew there was still more to be done. It wasn't just about revenge anymore, it was about building something of my own. Something that would last. I had the power, the resources, and the people I needed. Now, it was time to truly take control. Shane and I sat in the boardroom, the tension in the air thick with anticipation. I had just secured the final piece of the puzzle, the final signature from the remaining shareholders who had supported Liam. One by one, they had fallen in line, watching as I expertly manipulated them. "We're almost there," I said, looking around at the empty seats where the old executives used to sit. "Once this deal goes through, we'll have full control. No one can challenge us." Shane smiled, his usual calm demeanor never faltering. "It's just a formality now. We've already won." I nodded, but something gnawed at the back of my mind. Despite everything I had accomplished, there was still a part of me that wanted more. I wanted to see Liam suffer. He had taken so much from me in my past life, and now, I would make sure he paid in this one. I called my contact at the psychiatric facility the next day. "I want a report on Liam's condition. I need to know how much longer he can hold on to whatever sanity he has left." The voice on the other end was hesitant. "He's deteriorating quickly. He barely speaks anymore, and when he does, it's usually rambling. But, there's something else. He's been asking for you. He wants to talk to you." A twisted smile curled on my lips. "Tell him I'll come soon. But only on my terms." The visit was set for that weekend. Shane drove me to the facility, his eyes flicking to me occasionally, as though he could sense my excitement. The guards barely acknowledged our presence as we walked through the sterile halls. The place smelled like bleach and disinfectant, a reminder of how far Liam had fallen. When we reached the room, I could hear his voice through the thick door. It was weak, barely audible, but I could make out his words. "I know she's coming. I know she's coming for me," he muttered to himself. I took a deep breath before stepping inside, Shane close behind me. Liam sat in a chair, his hands trembling as he stared at the floor. His once sharp features were gaunt, his eyes hollow, his skin pale. The man who had once been so powerful was now a mere shadow. At the sound of the door opening, he looked up, his eyes widening when he saw me. "You," he gasped. "You came." I didn't respond at first. I just stood there, staring at him. There was something almost pathetic about the way he looked now, but I couldn't let myself feel sorry for him. Not after everything he had done. "You've finally realized what's happened, haven't you?" I said softly, walking toward him. "Everything you thought you had is gone. The company, your family, your reputation, it's all mine now." Liam's hands clenched into fists. "You won't get away with this. I'll make sure you pay for what you've done." I laughed, a low, mocking sound. "You're in no position to threaten anyone. You can barely keep your mind together, let alone take me down." He looked desperate, his eyes darting around the room as if he were searching for some escape that didn't exist. You're going to pay for this. You're going to regret everything." I stepped closer, my voice cold. "You should have thought about that before you betrayed me. Before you let Jada twist everything. Now it's too late." His face twisted with anger. "I never betrayed you. You were always too weak, too stupid to see the truth. Jada was always the one who." I didn't let him finish. Instead, I slapped him hard across the face, my hand stinging from the impact. "That's enough," I said, my voice calm but dripping with fury. "You don't get to say her name again. Not here, not ever." Liam's face turned red, his breathing ragged. But he said nothing more. He couldn't. He was already broken, and no amount of rage could change that. I turned to leave, Shane following close behind. Before I reached the door, I looked back one last time at Liam, still sitting there, trembling. "You're going to rot here, Liam," I said, my voice filled with finality. "And you'll have no one to blame but yourself." Back in the comfort of my home, I felt a sense of finality wash over me. Liam was where he belonged, lost and irrelevant. But there was still more to do. The company was mine, but I had to make sure it was solidified. I wasn't done yet. Not by a long shot. The next few weeks were focused on expanding the company's reach, making it even stronger. Shane and I worked together seamlessly, our bond growing with each decision we made. But as I grew more powerful, I started to notice something strange. I couldn't shake the feeling that someone was watching me. I had worked so hard to get here, but was there something, or someone, lurking in the shadows, waiting to tear it all down? I couldn't afford to let my guard down. Not now. Not after everything I had sacrificed. The whispers about me began again. People were talking, wondering how I had gained so much control so quickly. But I didn't care. The rumors didn't matter. They never had. What mattered now was the future. My future. And with Shane by my side, I was ready to face whatever came next. The weeks passed quickly, and everything seemed to be falling into place. I had outsmarted them all. The pieces of the puzzle were coming together one by one. Shane had become the perfect ally, and the more time we spent together, the more I realized just how much he had changed. He was no longer the boy I once knew, he had grown into a man with power, influence, and the kind of determination I admired. I couldn't help but feel a rush of pride as I watched him navigate the company, taking charge with ease. His calm, confident manner had won over everyone at the board meetings. The shareholders had no idea what was happening behind the scenes. They didn't know that it was all a carefully crafted plan. But I had to admit, even with all the success, I still wasn't content. I wanted more. I needed to make sure that no one could take what was rightfully mine. No one could tear down the empire I was building. It was time for the final blow. Shane and I sat in the sleek boardroom, surrounded by a group of executives who had been loyal to the Shen family for years. They still thought they were in control, but it was clear to me that they were just pawns in my game. Today marks a new era for the company, I said, my voice steady and filled with authority. A new direction. We will be expanding into new markets, new sectors. The future is ours to shape. The room was silent, everyone waiting for me to continue. They had no idea how much power I already held. I've already made arrangements for the future of Shen Group. The changes will be swift, but necessary, I added, leaning forward with a confident smile. Shane spoke up, his voice calm but firm. We'll be making some key adjustments to the leadership. It's time to bring in fresh faces, new blood, to push the company to the next level. The others nodded, eager to agree with whatever we said. But they had no idea just how much control we already had. I turned to one of the older executives, Mr. Liu, who had been with the company for decades. Mr. Liu, I'm afraid your time has come to an end. We'll be moving forward without you. His face paled, and for a moment, I saw a flicker of panic in his eyes. He had been loyal to the family for years, but he had no idea what I was capable of. You're dismissing me? He stammered, his voice shaking. I smiled sweetly. It's nothing personal, Mr. Liu. Just business. You're free to go. We've already made arrangements for your retirement. Later that day, I received a call from the psychiatric facility. It was about Liam. They told me he had become more violent, more unstable. His mental state had deteriorated rapidly since he was committed. I couldn't help but smile at the thought. The man who had once believed everything would be handed to him on a silver platter was now completely broken, his mind shattered. He was nothing now, just a shell of the man he used to be. Still, there was something I hadn't done yet. I hadn't seen him in person. And now, I felt the need to face him, to look into his eyes and remind him of everything he had lost. Shane drove me to the facility. We didn't say much during the ride. There was no need for words. I had made up my mind. I was ready to confront Liam, to end whatever loose ends remained. When we arrived, the guards barely noticed us as we walked through the halls. The building was sterile, cold, and lifeless, just like the man I was about to meet. We reached Liam's room, and I could hear his voice through the door, low and unsteady. I know she's coming, she's going to finish me off. I stepped inside. He looked up, his eyes wide with disbelief. You came, he whispered, his voice barely above a breath. I stood there, taking in the sight of him. He had once been strong, confident, but now he was a mess. His hair was unkempt, his clothes wrinkled, his eyes hollow. The man who had once been so full of arrogance and pride was now a broken, pathetic figure. You look terrible, I said, my voice calm but filled with a sense of satisfaction. Liam's eyes narrowed, a flicker of anger crossing his face. You think you've won, don't you? You think you're in control. I smiled sweetly. Of course, I am. You lost, Liam. And I don't just mean the company. I mean everything. Your family, your wealth, your pride. All of it is gone. And it's never coming back. He trembled, his fists clenched at his sides. You betrayed me. You're nothing but a snake. You always have been. I stepped closer, my heels clicking on the cold floor. No, Liam. I didn't betray you. You betrayed me. You let me suffer. You let Jada manipulate everything. And now look at you. You're nothing. His eyes filled with fury, but there was nothing he could do. He was powerless. I should have never trusted you. I should have never let you get close, he spat. I laughed, the sound sharp and cold. You were never in control, Liam. You were always just a pawn in a game you didn't even understand. And now? Now you're nothing. I turned to leave, but before I reached the door, I stopped and looked back. Oh, and by the way, I said, my voice laced with venom, Jada? She's gone. You'll never see her again. She's been erased. His face went pale, his eyes widening in shock. You killed her? I smiled, a wicked grin curling on my lips. Not quite. But she's gone. And you'll never get to find her again. Shane and I left the facility, and as we walked to the car, I felt a strange sense of calm wash over me. Everything was in its place. Liam was broken, Jada was gone, and the company was mine. But there was still one thing left to do. The final piece of the puzzle was in motion. And nothing would stop me now. The days that followed were a blur of triumph. Everything I had worked for was finally coming to fruition. The company was now under my full control, and the world was watching as I took the reins. I could almost taste the power that had once belonged to Liam. It felt sweet, but it also felt like the beginning of something even bigger. The Shen Group was no longer just a family company, it was now my empire. And Shane was by my side every step of the way, handling business matters with a level of finesse that made him an invaluable ally. We were unstoppable. One evening, as I sat in my office overlooking the city, I received an unexpected call. It was from Mr. Shen, my father-in-law. Are you free tomorrow? He asked, his voice clipped and formal. Of course, what's going on? I replied, though I could already sense the tension in his tone. I need to speak with you. It's important. Come to the house tomorrow morning. I frowned. I hadn't spoken to him much since the gala incident, but something about his request made my stomach churn. I couldn't figure out what it was, but I knew this conversation would be significant. The next morning, I arrived at the Shen family estate. It was the same grand, imposing mansion I had grown up around, but today it felt cold, distant, as though it had been abandoned. When I entered the house, I found Mr. Shen waiting for me in his study. He was sitting behind his desk, looking more serious than I had ever seen him. Come in, he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. We need to talk. I sat down, my mind racing. What could he want to discuss now? I've been thinking a lot about the future, Mr. Shen began, his tone uncharacteristically soft. About the family, about the business. I nodded, unsure of where this was going. What are you trying to say? You know how I've always treated you like family, right? How I promised you that the company would be yours someday? Yes, I said, watching him closely. I've been rethinking things. You see, after what happened with Liam, after everything we've been through, there's something you need to understand. I waited for him to continue, my heart pounding in my chest. Something about his tone made me uneasy. I know you have a plan for the future of the company, he said, his eyes narrowing. But I think it's time for you to hear the truth about your family's legacy. I leaned forward, my curiosity piqued. What are you talking about? Mr. Shen paused before continuing, his voice low. Your mother. She never intended for you to inherit the company. She never wanted you to have any control over it. I froze. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. What are you saying? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Your mother made sure that when the time came, she would control the company. She never trusted you. She never thought you were capable. I couldn't believe it. My own mother, the woman who had raised me, had planned this all along? She had been using me all these years, manipulating me to believe I was destined for greatness, when in reality, she had been setting me up to fail? She was never interested in passing down the company to you, Mr. Shen continued, his voice heavy with regret. She wanted someone else to take control. Someone she could trust. And now it's too late for you to change anything. I felt the walls around me closing in. This wasn't the world I had built. It was all a lie. My mother's betrayal cut deeper than anything else. She had known what I wanted, and instead of supporting me, she had been plotting against me from the very beginning. Is this true? I demanded, my hands shaking with rage. Mr. Shen hesitated, then nodded. Yes. She didn't want you to have any part in the company. She never did. I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. You're telling me that everything I've worked for, everything I've sacrificed, was all for nothing? That my mother never believed in me? Mr. Shen sighed deeply. I'm sorry, but it's the truth. I didn't say another word. I couldn't. I walked out of the study, my mind a whirlwind of emotions. Betrayal. Anger. Despair. I had always thought I was in control, that I was the one who had worked hard to get where I was. But in the end, none of it mattered. The company wasn't mine to inherit, not truly. It had been taken from me before I even knew what was happening. As I drove back to the office, I struggled to keep my composure. But inside, I was seething. I was done being manipulated. I was done being controlled. My mother's plans, her games, everything was going to fall apart. And I would be the one to bring it down. Later that night, I sat with Shane, poring over company documents. My mind kept returning to what Mr. Shen had told me. I was so close to everything I had ever wanted, yet I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, ready to fall. Shane glanced up from the papers in front of him. What's going on? You look like you've seen a ghost. I shook my head, unable to put my thoughts into words. It's nothing. Just family drama. I'll handle it. Shane frowned, his concern evident. You don't have to carry all of this alone. You know that, right? I nodded, grateful for his support, even though a part of me wanted to shut him out. I couldn't let him see how fragile I was feeling. He had always been the calm, steady one, the one I leaned on when things got tough. But now, everything was different. I'll take care of it, I said, forcing a smile. I always do. As I left the office later that night, I knew something had shifted. The game had changed. I wasn't just fighting for the company anymore. I was fighting for my very soul. I was going to tear down every lie, every piece of manipulation. And in the end, I would be the one standing victorious. The following days were a whirlwind of meetings, phone calls, and relentless preparation. The pressure was mounting, and I could feel the weight of it all bearing down on me. But I couldn't afford to falter now. Not when everything was finally within my grasp. Shane and I worked together, using every bit of strategy at our disposal. We started planning our next moves, trying to figure out how to take control of the family business once and for all. But with every step I took, the shadows of betrayal loomed larger. The next big blow came one evening, a few days after my conversation with Mr. Shen. It was a casual night, too casual, in fact. I had been relaxing in my apartment, going over the details of our next acquisition, when my phone rang. It was a message from an unknown number, one that made my blood run cold. The message was simple: you think you can take it all? You'll never have control of the company. Your mother will make sure of that. The words sent a shiver down my spine. My mother had been dead for years, but the power she had left behind was still alive, looming, watching, controlling. The message was a clear threat, and it was something I couldn't ignore. I tried to shake off the chill creeping into my bones, but I couldn't. The message made it clear that the battle for control was far from over. That same evening, Shane and I had dinner at the company headquarters, discussing future strategies. I couldn't focus, though. The message kept echoing in my mind, gnawing at me. Shane noticed my unease. What's wrong? You seem distracted. I hesitated for a moment, considering whether I should tell him about the message. But something stopped me. This was my fight now. I didn't want to drag Shane into it any more than I already had. So, I kept quiet. I'm fine, I said, forcing a smile. Just a lot on my mind. He didn't press further, but I could see the concern in his eyes. He trusted me, he always had. But I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep everything together. The next morning, as I sat in my office, the feeling of dread I had been trying to ignore continued to grow. I went over the numbers, the legal documents, every angle I could think of. But despite all my efforts, one truth kept coming back to me: no matter how hard I fought, no matter how clever my strategies, the company wasn't really mine. It wasn't just about the shares. It wasn't about the board members or the business deals. It was about control, the kind of control that came from something deeper than ownership. It was something my mother had always held over me, something I had never fully understood until now. I had to do something. I couldn't let her win from the grave. I couldn't let her legacy of manipulation continue to control my life. Later that day, I made a bold decision. I called a meeting with the board of directors. It was time to take things to the next level. If I was going to be in control, I needed to secure my position. And I needed to do it now. Shane came with me to the meeting, offering his support as always. But I knew this was my moment. The board members took their seats, all of them watching me with a mixture of curiosity and caution. They knew about my past with the company, about my history with Liam and my mother. But this was different. This time, I was the one in charge. The meeting began, and I could feel the tension in the room. The directors were waiting for me to make my move. I cleared my throat and stood up, looking each of them in the eye. "Thank you for coming," I began. "I won't waste your time. I'm here to make it clear that I am the rightful leader of this company. My mother's legacy is clouded with manipulation and control, but I intend to break free from that. I'm not just here to inherit what she left behind. I'm here to build something new, something that will stand on its own." There was a murmur among the directors, some nodding in agreement, others looking uncertain. But I wasn't finished yet. "I've already made moves to secure the future of this company," I continued. "But I need your full support. I need you to back me, without hesitation." A few more moments of silence passed before one of the senior directors, Mr. Zhang, spoke up. "You've been with this company for a long time, Miss Su," he said, his tone respectful but firm. "But your mother's influence still lingers. It's not going to be easy to erase that legacy." I nodded. "I know. But it's time for the past to end. I'm asking for your trust, your commitment, and your loyalty. Together, we can reshape this company's future." The room went quiet, the tension palpable. Then, slowly, one by one, the board members began to nod in agreement. It wasn't unanimous, but it was enough. I had done it. I had secured my place as the leader of the company. As I left the meeting, I felt a sense of triumph, but it was short-lived. The weight of everything that had happened, Liam's breakdown, Jada's betrayal, my mother's legacy, was still heavy on my shoulders. But I had made my move. And now, there was no turning back. Shane was waiting for me outside the boardroom, a smile on his face. "You did it," he said. "I knew you could." I nodded, trying to hide the exhaustion that was settling in. It's just the beginning. The next few weeks were a blur of constant work. There were new acquisitions to oversee, old contracts to renegotiate, and relationships to manage. But despite the demands, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Every move I made seemed to be under a microscope, and I couldn't figure out why. One afternoon, I received another anonymous message. This time, it was even more chilling than the last. "You think you've won? You haven't seen anything yet. The company will never be yours. Your mother will make sure of it." I clenched my fists, my heart pounding. The threats were becoming more direct, more dangerous. Someone was still trying to control me, even from the shadows. But I was no longer the person I had been. I wouldn't be manipulated again. I had a decision to make. I could let these threats break me, or I could use them to fuel my fire. And I knew exactly what I was going to do. I would find out who was behind these messages, and I would make them regret ever crossing me. The storm of uncertainty had reached its peak. The threats, the whispers, the constant pressure, everything seemed to be closing in around me. But now, I knew what I had to do. I had to eliminate the shadows that still lurked, waiting to strike. I spent the next few days focusing on the one thing that had always given me strength: control. Control over the company, control over my life, and control over the people who tried to undermine me. Shane was by my side as usual, but I could see the worry in his eyes. He knew that something was wrong, even though I tried to reassure him. I wasn't sure how much longer I could keep up the facade, but I had to keep going. For my future, for my success. The anonymous messages kept coming, each one more threatening than the last. But this time I wasn't going to sit back and wait. I needed answers, and I was going to get them. I began digging into every detail of the company, reviewing old files, looking into everyone's background. I knew there was someone out there who was trying to sabotage me, someone who had been playing the long game. It wasn't just about business anymore, it was personal. And then, I found something. Hidden deep within the financial records, there was a name that kept coming up: Mei Lin. Mei Lin was an old associate of my mother's, someone who had always been around but never quite in the spotlight. Her name had been associated with several key transactions in the past, but I never thought much of it. Until now. Mei Lin had been connected to my mother's darkest dealings, and it seemed like she was still holding some sort of power over the company. I needed to confront her, but I couldn't do it alone. This time, I called Shane. "Shane, I need you to help me," I said over the phone. "I've found something." "Mei Lin. She's still involved, and I think she's behind everything." There was a pause on the other end, then Shane responded, his voice calm but firm: "I'll be there. We'll take care of it." The plan was simple. I would meet Mei Lin, confront her, and get the truth out of her. There was no room for hesitation. I had worked too hard to let someone like her destroy everything I had built. Shane and I arranged the meeting for the following evening at an upscale restaurant. It was a neutral location, perfect for a confrontation that I knew would be tense. I dressed carefully, every detail had to be perfect. I wasn't just going to confront Mei Lin as a businesswoman, I was going to confront her as the person who had tried to ruin my life. When we arrived, Mei Lin was already seated, her cold eyes scanning the room. She wasn't surprised to see me, but she wasn't expecting Shane. I could see her calculating, trying to figure out what this meant. I took a deep breath and walked over to the table, sitting across from her. "Mei Lin," I said, my voice steady, "we need to talk." She raised an eyebrow but didn't say anything. Instead, she picked up her wine glass and took a sip, as if this was just another day in her life. "You've been behind the messages, haven't you?" I asked, cutting straight to the point. "You've been manipulating everything from the shadows, trying to take control of what's mine." She set the glass down and finally spoke. "You always were so naive, Sue," she said, her tone dripping with disdain. "You think you can take over the company just because your mother left you a few shares? You'll never have control. Not while I'm still around." Her words hit me like a slap to the face, but I didn't flinch. I had come too far to let her intimidate me. "I don't need your approval," I said coldly. "I'm not asking for control. I'm taking it. And you won't stop me." Mei Lin's eyes narrowed, but she didn't respond. Instead, she leaned forward, her voice low and menacing. "You think you've won? You think this is your company now? It's all a game, Sue. And you've only just started playing." I could feel my pulse quicken. There was more to this, more that she wasn't telling me. But I wasn't going to let her play her mind games anymore. "You've been using my mother's legacy to control this company for years," I said, my voice firm. "But it ends now. You can either get out of my way, or I will make sure you regret ever crossing me." Mei Lin studied me for a long moment, then finally smirked. "You're just like her," she said, her voice laced with bitterness. "You think you can replace me? You think you can erase the past? I'm not going anywhere. And neither is the company. The conversation was a standoff, but in the end, I knew it wasn't over. I had exposed her, but I still had to deal with the aftermath. Mei Lin wasn't going to give up easily. She would fight back, but I was ready for her. This battle wasn't just about business, it was about my future, my legacy. And I wasn't going to lose. As we left the restaurant, Shane was quiet beside me. I could sense his concern, but I also saw the determination in his eyes. He was with me, all the way. We walked out into the cold night, and for the first time in days, I felt like I was finally in control again. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear, no one was going to stand in my way. Not Mei Lin, not anyone. The Shen group was mine now, and I was ready to take it to new heights. This was just the beginning. The battle for control had only begun, and I was ready to fight for what was mine. Nothing and no one could stop me now.